Hey everyone, welcome back to BookBlink. Today we're diving into Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. If you're ready to get vulnerable and discover the power within, you're in the right place. So, let's get into it. Point 1. The power of vulnerability. Alright, let's kick things off with vulnerability. Brené Brown turns the tables on a common misconception: vulnerability isn't a weakness. Think about it. Society often tells us that showing our emotions or admitting we don't have it all together is a sign of frailty. But Brené's research tells a different story. She argues that vulnerability is actually our greatest measure of courage. Imagine the moments when you felt truly alive, falling in love, starting a new job, or sharing your art with the world. These moments require us to step into uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. That's vulnerability. And it takes guts. It's about having the courage to show up when you have no control over the outcome. Vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. Without it, there can be no progress. When we dare to take risks, we open ourselves up to new possibilities. Remember that promotion you went for or the business you started? Those steps required you to be vulnerable. So next time you feel like holding back, think about what you might miss out on. Brené's point is clear. Embracing vulnerability is key to living a full, authentic life. It's not about winning or losing, but about having the courage to show up and be seen. Point 2. Shame versus guilt. Let's dive into shame and guilt. Brené makes a crucial distinction between these two emotions that often get lumped together. Shame is that nasty voice in our heads telling us we're not good enough. It's a focus on self. I am bad. Guilt, on the other hand, is about our actions. I did something bad. This distinction matters because shame is destructive. It eats away at our self-worth and can lead to a downward spiral of negative thinking. Guilt, however, can be a force for good. It's a signal that we've gone against our values and can motivate us to make amends and do better next time. Consider a scenario where you made a mistake at work. If you feel guilty, you might think, I screwed up that project, I need to fix it and learn from it. But if you feel shame, you might think, I'm a failure, I'm not cut out for this job. See the difference? One perspective is constructive, the other is debilitating. Brené suggests that overcoming shame starts with recognizing it and speaking about it. Shame thrives in secrecy. By bringing it into the light and discussing it with someone we trust, we diminish its power. This is why sharing our stories and struggles is so important. It connects us to others and helps us realize we're not alone in our experiences. Point 3. The myth of vulnerability. Alright, let's bust a myth. There's this huge misconception that being vulnerable means airing all your dirty laundry to everyone. But Brené makes it clear, vulnerability isn't about oversharing. It's about sharing appropriately with those who've earned the right to hear your story. Think of vulnerability as a precious gift. You wouldn't just give it to anyone on the street, right? It's meant for those trusted few who've shown they can handle it with care. This means setting boundaries and being selective about who you open up to. For example, sharing your deepest fears with a close friend or partner who's shown they're supportive is a good idea. But spilling your guts to a coworker you barely know might not be wise. It's about finding that balance and understanding that vulnerability is about trust and connection. Brené calls this process practicing discernment. It's about knowing when, where, and with whom to be vulnerable. It's not about building walls, but about setting healthy boundaries that protect our emotional well-being. Point 4. Scarcity culture. Now, let's talk about scarcity culture. We live in a world where there's a constant message of never enough, never rich enough, smart enough, attractive enough. This mindset of scarcity is toxic and pervasive. It drives us to compare ourselves to others and feel inadequate. Brené explains that scarcity culture keeps us in a state of fear and anxiety. It's like we're constantly running on a hamster wheel, trying to prove our worth. This impacts our relationships, our work, and our sense of self. But here's the kicker, scarcity is just a mindset. It's not reality. By shifting our focus to abundance, we can start to see the world through a different lens. Abundance is about gratitude, contentment, and recognizing that we have enough and we are enough. One way to combat scarcity is through practicing gratitude. By regularly acknowledging the good in our lives, we can rewire our brains to focus on abundance. It's not about ignoring the challenges but about seeing the full picture, the positives along with the negatives. Point 5. The armor we wear. To protect ourselves from vulnerability, we put on armor. This can be perfectionism, numbing, or cynicism. These are defense mechanisms that keep us from getting hurt but also prevent us from experiencing true connection and joy. Perfectionism is the belief that if we look perfect and act perfect, we can avoid the pain of blame, judgment, and shame. But perfection is an unattainable goal. It sets us up for failure and disappointment. Breen calls perfectionism a 20-ton shield that we lug around, thinking it will protect us, but it only weighs us down. Numbing is another form of armor. We turn to alcohol, food, work, or even social media to escape our feelings. But numbing our pain also numbs our joy. It's a temporary fix that leaves us feeling empty and disconnected. Cynicism is yet another armor. It's the whatever attitude that keeps us from getting hurt by lowering our expectations. But cynicism also blocks us from experiencing genuine connections and hope. Breen encourages us to recognize these armors and work on taking them off. It's about finding the courage to be imperfect, to feel our emotions, and to hope again. This is where true connection and joy reside. Point 6. Wholehearted living. Breen introduces the concept of wholehearted living, which is about engaging in our lives from a place of worthiness. Wholehearted living is about cultivating courage, compassion, and connection. It's not about being perfect, but about being real and showing up, even when it's tough. Wholehearted people believe they are worthy of love and belonging. They have a sense of purpose and feel connected to others. They embrace their vulnerabilities and imperfections, and they know that their worth isn't tied to their achievements. One key aspect of wholehearted living is courage. Breen defines courage as speaking one's mind by telling all one's heart. It's about being authentic and letting ourselves be seen, even when it's scary. Compassion is another cornerstone. It's about being kind to ourselves and others. It's recognizing our shared humanity and understanding that everyone is doing their best with what they have. Connection is the third element. It's about building and nurturing relationships. Connection gives our lives meaning and purpose. It's about being there for each other and creating a sense of community. Point 7. The importance of self-compassion. Self-compassion is huge in Daring Greatly. Breen emphasizes that we need to be kind to ourselves and treat ourselves with the same compassion we'd show to a friend. This means recognizing our humanity and not being so hard on ourselves. Think about how you talk to yourself when you make a mistake. If you're like most people, you're probably pretty harsh. Now imagine if a friend came to you with the same problem. You'd likely offer words of comfort and support, right? That's self-compassion. Self-compassion involves three elements: self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. Self-kindness means being gentle and understanding with ourselves rather than harshly critical. Common humanity means recognizing that everyone makes mistakes and has difficult times. We're not alone in our struggles. Mindfulness involves being aware of our thoughts and feelings without getting caught up in them or judging them. By practicing self-compassion, we can build resilience and better cope with life's challenges. It helps us to accept our imperfections and to see ourselves as worthy of love and acceptance. Point 8. The role of leadership. Vulnerability isn't just a personal thing, it's a leadership thing too. Breen talks about how leaders who embrace vulnerability can create environments of trust and innovation. It's about leading by example and showing that it's okay to take risks and make mistakes. Traditional leadership models often emphasize authority and control. But Breen argues that true leadership is about connection and empathy. Vulnerable leaders are willing to say, "I don't know," or "I need help." They're open to feedback and willing to learn from their mistakes. This kind of leadership fosters a culture of trust and collaboration. When team members see their leader being open and authentic, they feel safe to do the same. This leads to increased creativity, innovation, and a sense of belonging. Vulnerable leadership also involves setting clear boundaries and expectations. It's not about being weak or permissive, but about being honest and transparent. It's about creating a space where people feel valued and heard. Point 9. Parenting and vulnerability. For all the parents out there, Breen has some gold. She says we should model vulnerability for our kids. This means showing them that it's okay to be imperfect and that their worth isn't tied to their achievements. It's about creating a safe space for them to express themselves. Parenting is tough, and there's no such thing as a perfect parent. Breen encourages us to embrace our imperfections and to show our kids that it's okay to make mistakes. This helps them to develop a healthy sense of self-worth and resilience. Modeling vulnerability also means being open about our own feelings and struggles. It's about saying, "I'm feeling really stressed right now," or "I made a mistake and I'm sorry." This teaches kids that it's okay to be vulnerable and to seek support when they need it. Creating a safe space for kids means listening to them and validating their feelings. It's about being present and showing them that they are loved unconditionally. This helps them to feel secure and to develop a strong sense of self. Point 10. The call to courage. Lastly, Breen calls us to courage. Daring greatly is about stepping into the arena, even when we're scared. It's about choosing to be seen, to be vulnerable, and to live wholeheartedly. It's not easy, but it's so worth it. Courage is about facing our fears and taking action despite them. It's about being true to ourselves and standing up for what we believe in. It's about having difficult conversations, taking risks, and making bold choices. Living courageously means accepting that we will sometimes fail and make mistakes. But it's about getting back up and trying again. It's about learning and growing from our experiences. Breen's call to courage is a reminder that we all have the capacity to live boldly and authentically. It's about embracing our vulnerabilities and showing up in our lives with our whole hearts. And there you have it, folks. A quick dive into Brené Brown's Daring Greatly. Remember, vulnerability is strength, and daring greatly is about showing up and being seen. Like this summary? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to BookBlink. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for the next video, and happy reading!